What's going on here in the Beat Sessions? I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new record from Destroyer. It's entitled LABYRINTHITIS, and it was released on March 25th. It's the band's 13th studio album and their follow-up to 2020's Have We Met? And what a pleasure to watch Dan Behar do his thing with this project for almost 3 decades now. It's pretty hard to believe, but I love this man and the way that he approaches the process of creating an album. So consistent in that clean slate every single time, tabula rasa. And it makes it so exciting every time you get new material from these guys and you hit play. One of my favorite things to do when I prepare for a review is to look at the genre classification of a band. It's so arbitrary and I just get a kick out of it sometimes, but most of them will have 3 or 4 or 5 classifications. Destroyer, though, they only have 1, classified as indie rock. And I would argue that that really is a big statement about how much ground they've covered with their sound. So unique, so dynamic. And I would say a big part of that is the way that Dan chooses to collaborate with other artists. A lot of people look at this as a solo project, and I very much disagree with that. Longtime collaborator John Collins especially, I think, is a big part of keeping that exploration consistent and keeping the sound good. He's a big part of the production process as well. And on this new record, I mean, he plays bass, but I'm loving his bass playing on this record. It is absolutely outstanding. And I would say that with all the other players in the band too. Dan is the type of guy that I don't think he's ever going to show his maturity as far as developing as a musician in the album making process. Not at least in the songs you hear. I think a lot of bands, when I say this, a lot of bands have a style and they'll develop that style as they continue to make albums. But I think Dan is the kind of guy, when you look at him as a songwriter, there's a big revolving cast of characters early on with this project. And I feel that there's been more consistency with the players. And I think as he's grown as a songwriter, he's learned to, develop those dynamics and those relationships and find people that he's able to explore and be creative with and make different styles of music with versus just, bringing in different players to make that happen. So I love that about him. And lyrically too, very cryptic oftentimes, but he's very wordy and I dig that about him, very witty as well. This particular record though, you can see him, it's not as... There aren't as many words. He's not as wordy as he normally is, and the lyrics are kind of simple, but still very biting. I love this spoken word element of the song June, where he says you have to look at it from all angles. Says the Cubist judge from the Cubist jail. So that type of just incredible lyrical content is still present throughout this record. It's one of the things I absolutely love about Dan, but it's again, it's interesting to see the way he's sort of minimalized that. I guess laconic would be the word that I would use. He's not quite as wordy on this particular record, but the sound of it is incredible. It's funky, all sorts of different stuff going on. I mean, I hear bands like Talking Heads, Granddaddy, Phoenix, TV on the Radio, new and old. This is a really fun record to listen to, and I'm not going to argue that it's their best, but that's what makes Destroyer so cool. If you wanted to argue this is their best record, I could understand that. And I could understand why you could argue that for any of their other records. But I certainly would say that this is a marvelous addition to their catalog. I'm really loving the territory that they're covering on this record. And it's fun. It's upbeat. It's energetic. There's a lot of disco on this thing. And I really love the horn arrangements as well. It's not on every single song, but when you hear horns on this record, they are absolutely fantastic. This thing, it kicks off with It's In Your Heart Now. Amazing opener, big jam here. I really like, it's got this very loose intro and it's almost like electro reggae, and then it changes and this thing starts to come together and it happens real quick, and then the song, it works into this thing and it builds around this excellent bass line and these bright synths, and I love how ambient it is. It is a marvelous way to open up this record. And you talk about the lyrical content as well. It's laconic, again, very minimal. It's not quite as wordy as maybe we're accustomed to hearing Dan be. So it's you talk about some of those changes, and people will call it maturity or growth as a songwriter, but I think it's just something different that he chose to do with this particular record. Suffer is your second song. Really like this track. It's got this great post-punk feel. The drum machine and the other instrumentation has got this muted lo-fi dynamic to it until about, I'd say, 45 seconds in, maybe a minute in, and then it kicks in and really fills out, and it's wonderful. June, your third song, what a track. This song is incredible. Thick, funky bass. It's got this great disco element. I hear bands like Talking Heads in the song. Granddaddy's another one. It's got this brilliant coda, and it's so funky and so catchy. It's got this great hook and this spoken word element with that line that I just mentioned, but I don't think I've heard something this funky and disco driven and catchy since Get Lucky by Daft Punk. Honestly, like, this song is really remarkable in all of the different territory and ground that it covers. All My Pretty Dresses is your fourth track. Up-tempo, soft groove, reminded me of a band like Beat Connection, a little bit of Duran Duran in here. Love the horns on this particular song, really nicely done. Your fifth track, Tintoretto, It's For You. Again, that quirkiness lyrically, we're seeing that from Dan. I love that name. This song, it's got this thick, sinister, pulsating bass, this gorgeous piano behind that as well. Reminded me of a band like She Wants Revenge. These guys just totally all over the place. Labyrinthitis, your title track, is your sixth song. It's instrumental, very interesting. It's a nice break in the action. And to a certain degree, I really like the way it sort of captures the Canadian pastoral. And if you've ever flown in a plane over Canada in like the very wooded parts of it, it is a labyrinth. I mean, if you ever crashed in a forest like that, it's no wonder how you would be lost forever. I mean, it's very beautiful, but it's very intimidating as well. And to a certain degree, I feel that this music is beautiful, but it also captures that cold, icy isolation that you can feel with that. Seventh track, Eat the Wine, Drink the Bread. That's not mixed up. It's an excellent disco and 80s electro pop song. Really some fun territory that they're feeling out here. I love the disco influence on this record. It Takes a Thief is your eighth track. Keeps the tempo built on this record, and I like the way that, Eat the Wine, it comes out of Labyrinth and establishes reestablishes the groove. But It Takes a Thief is an excellent song. I like the way that this song keeps the tempo going, but it's got this great groovy bass, sparse instrumentation, reminding me of a band like Phoenix. And the horns, again, the horns are excellent on this thing. The States, your ninth song, mellow ambient electropop. You got this funky bass built into it as well. John absolutely killing it in that regard on this particular track, and a great penultimate song. It's just a marvelous way to lead into the last song, which is the title of the last song. Your 10th track is simple. It's roughly about 2 minutes. Gets kind of more into that, I guess, like indie folkish element that Dan is able to cover. Electric guitar on this particular track, but a nice way to pull back and wind this thing down. And a marvelous project. Really nicely done from Destroyer. Always happy to have the ability to go to the record store and buy a new record from them. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to vinyl please this thing. I hope you enjoyed listening to this record. I hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2022, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.